Good afternoon and welcome to the annual meeting of the Board of Directors for the Port of Oswego Authority, Wednesday, March 26th. It is 4:40 p.m. And could we have a roll call, please? Can we start with Fran on computer, Zoom?
Yeah, Fran Enright, member.
Tom Schneider, interim executive director.
Stan Delia, board member.
James Metcalf, citizen observing.
Effective number.
Pat McMahon, port employee.
Kitty Macy, member.
Diane Zeller, member.
John Carcara Smith, member.
Connie Casamento, member. The first item on our agenda, motion AM 2501, approval of prompt payment policy pursuant to section 2880 of the Public Authorities Law. That's exhibit A and A in your packet.
And I mean, just the, motions 2501 through 2504 have not changed from the prior year. 2505 and 2506 are new.
Okay.
And they're both kind of as a result of the state budget authority doing a review, the authority budget office doing a review of our website and saying there are some things that aren't missing. So we need the board to just adopt this mission statement and key performance metrics and the conflict of interest policy that were on our website.
All right, do we have a motion for
So moved.
Diane?
Second.
This is just 2501.
2501.
If nothing has changed, can we do the other three just collectively? Or do we have to do each one
That's
individually?
because it's the annual meeting, let's get the
Just do it.
minutes recording them separately, if you don't mind.
I agree.
Just because of the formality of the annual meeting, otherwise I agree with you.
These are the same
Same,
motions from last year.
yep.
Is this mandated by the state
Yep.
or is it? Okay.
Yes, these are,
And this is all the mandated stuff we have to get passed right now. They're asking for it.
So, it's prompt payment, it's, procurement, it's, disposition of property, and it's an investment policy that we don't have any investments.
it describes the contracts and procedure for requesting payment, et cetera. It's daily business, so to speak.
Yeah, just, things that are adopted statutorily.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passes. Motion AM 2502, review and approve the adoption of guidelines for awarding procurement contracts pursuant to section 2879 of the Public Authorities Law, which is exhibit A and B in your packet.
So moved.
Diane, thank you.
Second.
Stan? Questions, comments?
At some point, I'd like to revisit paragraph B and up the authority level for the position that is now supervisor of development and maintenance.
What page is that on?
Page 4, I'm sorry.
That's okay, sorry.
I don't think we need to do it now.
All
We
right.
don't have it in writing, but I'll circle back on it.
Making a note.
That's got to be able to make some decisions on the fly.
Okay. Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Recused? Passes. Motion AM 2503 to review and approve the Port of Oswego Authority property disposition policy pursuant to section 2896 of the Public Authorities Law, which is exhibit AMC in your packet. Any comments on this, John?
Just that we are in the process of selling the land that sits under the board building. It's really just buying it for the net present value of its, future lease stream of payments and closing that with the property owner any day. And that's otherwise known as a vacant property.
So moved?
Diane?
Second?
And we
Okay.
followed this procedure.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Recused? Passes. Motion AM 2504, review and approve Port of Oswego Authority investment policy pursuant to section 2925 of the Public Authorities Law, Exhibit AMD in your packet.
And my only comment here is, if you had investments, there, could be a lot of fiduciary obligations that would come along with that in terms of reviewing the diversification of the investment, fixed income, whatever equity. All we have are FDIC insured bank accounts, so it's fairly simple.
All right.
And we monitor
So moved.
deposits over $250,000.
Diane,
Do you,
second.
do we look at different banks or are these?
Second.
Thank you, John.
These
Key
are.
Bank seems to have a monopoly, don't they?
Key Bank, when Key Bank was formed out of an Albany-based and a Syracuse-based bank, there was a prominent senator who was the general counsel who put those together. So all state funds went to Key Bank.
Mhm. Do we get any interest?
It depends on which account it's in. We do have some CDs that are gaining interest, and there's a money market account. I think that's one that is interest bearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Recused? Passes. All right, this is a new motion, AM 2505, review and re-adopt the Port of Oswego Authority mission statement and KPIs Exhibit AME in your packet.
And you can see these were last revised in 2017, so I'm not doing advancing anything here. I'm just putting forward what we've had out there for readoption, so we place it on the website in accordance with the audit that occurred on the website, that these should be out there. And as I indicated, they're fairly broad general statements. They're not really true key performance indicators as a business would identify it, like return on equity.
I thought our mission statement was there. On that website.
It could be, and Kevin provided this to me in between
All of
a
them.
myriad appointments.
I think it's only this part, Connie, because I just went through the website
Yeah.
just because I was coming to this.
Yeah.
to-
Did you see that? I thought it.
Yes, but I don't think the KPIs are on there.
The
So
key
she
performance
probably-
indicators.
It's probably all on one page, and she just printed it to get
Okay. All right. Yes, the state did review our website, and they have some comments, which are,
in the regular meeting. It's on the agenda.
So we haven't changed the mission statement, we've added key performance indicators.
I would think that these KPIs have been out there.
Yeah.
They're part of the comprehensive plan that's
Yeah.
required to be out there. But I think that based upon the website audit results, they wanted to see these more prominently
Okay.
placed alongside of the mission statement. I really got to get back to that and promise the state that we respond to them by March 31st.
Yeah.
That's why we're trying to get this in front of the board before then.
it's a board, it's a state.
But
Yes.
we'll revisit all this, and Fran talk a little bit, maybe in an executive session about, what we do strategically going forward.
Okay.
Okay.
So moved?
Diane,
Second.
second, anybody?
Kitty?
John.
Aye.
Jen?
Okay, whatever.
And any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Recused? Passes. And on to motion number 7, motion AM 2506, review and adopt the new Port of Oswego Authority Conflict of Interest Policy, which is Exhibit A and F in your packet.
And while within our employee handbook, we have conflict of interest language. And I don't know why this has escaped me all these years as a board member, but we do not have a conflict of interest policy, and that again was noted in that website video.
Yeah.
And this was a cut and paste job by me, right from the state's recommended framework.
So basically, we need to go over that and approve it.
This would be the adoption of a new policy, the conflict of interest policy, and it's pursuant to this statutory site, the site with a C, section
Basically.
2824,
Yeah,
75.
basically, that.
Let me just say this about conflict of interest. And they're very good with what they did this. They didn't change it, it was very good. What they start with is the duty to disclose. People get very hung up in refusing and abstaining from votes and stuff. But the first primary thing is disclosure. We're going to have conflicts. It's a small community. You just lay them on the table. And then it's up to the board to decide whether or not that conflict means that you should be recused from conversation or simply abstain from the vote, or really it's not influential enough to disturb your vote. This is when you start coming down to things covered under the business judgment role and what does a reasonable person do. So once you disclose, then it's up to the rest of the members to say, okay, with this disclosure, what does it mean?
Will this be part of the employee handbook?
So there is conflict of interest language already in the employee
Yes, I know.
handbook. This is a little bit more extensive. I look at this covering more the fiduciary responsibility of the board.
Okay.
But we could insert this language to replace the current language in the handbook, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But this, I more see under the duty of care, duty of loyalty, avoid conflict of interest as the 3 primary components of fiduciary responsibility.
And the state, when you do training with them, has an excellent training section on conflict of interest.
But, I went through this with many governing bodies, just a disclosure, get it out there, and then you worry about whether it's, how much it impacts the city.
All right, any other questions?
So moved.
Diane, you're on tonight.
I know, right?
Okay,
I'll second it.
Diane moved that, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Kenny, you're gonna have to move your seat.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
All
Recused? Passes.
Nobody has a conflict of interest about the conflict of interest?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, appointments and elections. Appointment of the legal counsel.
Yeah. So what you see under tab
AMG?
AMG
G.
is just the bylaws and the obligation of the board to annually appoint counsel, just as we annually appoint officers of the board. We've been using Bousquet Holstein as our primary legal advisor, and well, we can revisit that. As I said to everyone in my first few months here, I wanted to listen, learn, and not make too many changes until I know what I'm talking about. So I don't have any recommended changes here to the board, but it's a board decision on the adoption of council.
I kind of like our council. Yeah, I do too.
And that's,
To me, it's like, it's,
yeah.
I like he's very down to earth to
Yeah.
talking to us, and I think Mike is very good to work with.
Yeah.
But that's, again, me,
Yeah.
Well, teacher's name?
So,
Micah.
Mike,
it's
really
Lawrence,
confirmed.
Lawrence, Micah, Ordway. It won't be in there.
Yeah, gotcha.
And Micah, he became, you know, the front door. But we really turned to Bousquet Holstein because they had Marianne Katzoff there, who had a lot of experience with IDAs and other authorities. Susan Katzoff, I'm sorry. And that was a recommendation that came to the board a long time ago. As we moved into some, you know, conflict on contracts and we've used, you know, we're in litigation, Mike Ordway became sort of the front face of the door. And so I like to walk through the door with the person who's controlling the account. So if it's a real estate deal, it goes to one of their real estate people. If it's, you know, authorities law, it goes, you know, to,
He's very direct and he's very good at answering
yeah.
questions.
Yeah. And on the labor side, though, we're with Bon Cheneking, Kane, and Tom Enron.
Mhm.
So, you know, it used to be that the general counsel sat on the board and attended every meeting, and it was usually a local attorney, and would end up having to farm out.
Shari.
yeah.
Yes.
We kept it local.
I understand.
So, you know, this just, you know, at different times we've used, you know, different counsel for different purposes, but this we deem our general counsel, and this is counsel to the board. So when we say counsel to the Board of Oswego Authority, it's the Board of Oswego Authority as constituted by its board. So this isn't my advisor, it's not Pilot's advisor, this is the board's advisor.
They have a straight retainer or hourly after a certain amount, or what do they do?
It's hourly, isn't it? I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure it's hourly.
I'll use it when I need it, but, you know.
Yeah, sure.
I was searching for somebody in a specialty in admiralty law because of this vessel issue we had down here that Pat will talk about later. But frankly, you know, what I found mostly was that even those who specialize in admiralty law were normally litigants for people who get hurt on boats. Not necessarily, hey, somebody abandoned a boat, what do you do?
Yeah, I read up on that in the minutes.
Yep.
On
Yeah,
the
really.
website.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah,
Surprise.
You're gonna get a great report later from Pat.
Handball.
And-
Okay, so we don't need a motion for these.
Yeah, yes, you need to appoint the council by motion.
Mhm.
Oh, all right. So let's do one of these at a time then. And, so we're gonna retain,
It's an appointment and an election, but the board should, you know, just have a vote, you know, so we would just say, you know,
Passed.
vote to appoint, Bousquet Holstein as legal counsel for the Board of Oswego Authority for the fiscal year that begins on April 1st of 2025 and ends on March 31st of 2026.
that's the motion.
That's what Kim will pick up on, hopefully if my microphone, if I spoke loud enough, she'll hear it, and that's what's all right in the minute. But I can't put that on the table.
So do we
But John
need,
can.
do we need to put that on the table, like make a motion?
I don't remember all, whatever he said.
I wrote it.
I guess
So,
we can-
so John?
Who seconded
made
it?
that motion?
Yes,
I'll second it this time.
You got it.
thank you.
There you go.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. No recusings. Election of the Board of Officers for the fiscal year 2025-26, which is Exhibit H.
So, I think it's hard for the chair, the vice chair, and the treasurer to move on themselves. But kind of certainly take, you know, the vote, but I think it's, I hope everyone would like to retain their office or positions for a continuity purposes in a time when, A, we're going to be trying this year to get our board up to its, number of 9, and, 2, you have this, new interim executive director, and continuity of the board is very important. Yeah.
I agree with that.
Mhm.
Is there anyone that does not want to retain their position?
I'll be more than happy to say goodbye next year.
Really?
Well,
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people around the table have put in, a lot of time for the benefit of this public benefit corporation and state authority. And they do so of their own time, will, and energy.
Right.
And, some of them have put in a lot of time.
Yes.
And,
the
probably.
salary's good
They,
too.
they could double or triple the salary, and, it's still gonna end up the same number. Times anything by 0, and it comes up to 0.
Stays the same.
But the one thing that I feel like we can't afford to lose right now, going in this turbulent time, is that experience that everybody who is heading,
Yeah.
their component brings to the table.
And so not only, you're faced with a new, executive director and the search process, but, the directives of the, executive branch of government could really be disruptive to our business model. So we, continuity of the board.
This is a board where the director is under the authority of the chair of the board. Yeah, so it would be important to keep the chair.
Sure. No, and-
Keep Tom in line.
And the secretary treasurer, that's Stan, or is that Kitty? Okay.
Just your title.
So John made the
I'm the
motion.
secretary treasurer.
Are you seconded?
Oh, did you?
Yes, I did.
No, everybody's keeping their same position.
And so Diane, are you doing the second?
I think
Stan?
Kitty is.
No,
But she's-
Oh, she can't, yes, I
know,
will.
Yeah, I mean, you can,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to vote
Gotcha.
for yourselves, but
I
I'd rather you didn't move for
Yeah.
yourselves.
recognize that as soon as it came out of my
Ah, okay, I'm
mouth.
sorry.
All right, any more discussion?
Not that it.
I just feel like I'm
officer as far as
you know,
conflict of interest,
um,
but, yeah.
Do too much, share the wealth with the
That's what
big.
you
I don't know. All right, all in favor?
are.
Opposed?
Your position,
Recused?
I'm secretary treasurer, is that me?
no.
What?
What are you doing
So,
now?
is there any good for the order for the annual meeting?
You are, Kitty.
What? What do I do? What?
You are secretary treasurer.
I thought so.
But Stan is the chair of the audit finance committee, so he relieves you a lot of the treasury burden.
Okay, that's good.
Stan is very good at what he does.
Very good.
Motion to adjourn?
So,
Diane? Stan?
stop looking at me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, we can have a meeting?
5:05 PM. Opposed? Passes.
So the pink tab separates the annual meeting from the regular.
Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Port of Oswego for Wednesday, March 26, 2025. At 5:06, we're calling this meeting to order, and we will begin with a roll call. Fran?
Fran Emmerich, board member.
Tom Schneider, interim executive director.
Stan Delia, board member.
James Metcalf, observing.
Pat McMahon, port employee.
Kenny Mason, member?
Diane Zeller, member.
John Kara Smith, member.
Connie Casamento, member. We'll begin with our first motion, 03262501, to move to executive session for the discussion of annual personnel issues.
I'll move it.
Stan?
Kitty will second.
I'll second it.
Oh,
Good. And at 5:07, we are in executive session.
For a very long time.
Yeah, it's really too bad. Okay, you're live.
All right, we have a motion, 6:25 PM, by Kit, second by John, to resume the regular meeting. That motion passes. And we go on now to approve the minutes of the February 2nd meeting in February 24th, 2025.
As distributed,
Pardon me?
as distributed, you said, didn't you?
Yes, are there any corrections or additions? If not, we will file as distributed. Number 4, we need a motion to approve, wait a minute. 5 is the, I'm sorry, we did that. 5, administrative operational report, and that's Tom.
Yeah.
And
So-
that is
Exhibit B.
in your,
The Tab B, with a, a report on kind of detailed activities of
Exhibit B.
trucks, trains, and vessels coming in and out. But I want to be real quick at this, there's a lot in the executive session, we talked about some of these things. This is more just structural on the report. I wanted to just change the structure a little bit, and I'll probably keep playing with it. But I wanted to talk about our operating businesses as transloading and warehousing with our 3 primary commodities that we work in, now being aluminum, grain, and potash. The silo system had a real tough time getting through the winter, and someday Pat's got to get the up and down the stairs award for going on top of that silo. I went up once with him on a cold day, and it was painful. But so and then we have the marina business on the east side and the west side. The east side marina, the docks are in. We'll be ready to open. The crane repairs are taking place, and we'll be ready to go when the first boat is scheduled to go in the water. Pat, good with that?
Yes.
The west side experienced some damages to the docks during the winter, and now that that has gone away, we're going to evaluate how to get that back into shape, and then really start marketing that west side marina. Because the east side's full, but the west side needs to be targeted for marketing. On tenant updates, I talked to you a little bit about the Vinegar Hill and the sale of the property under the Customs and Border Patrol building. What we call Fish and Wildlife, which is the USGS that leases from us at 17 Lake Street. There's been a formal notification. The lease ends, the lease renewal would be at September 30th of 2025. And prior to that, we received the timely 6-month notification of lease termination. This isn't about, how Fish and Wildlife locally or those operating it feel about, their tenancy at the port. This has to do with the executive federal administration making certain cuts, and those cuts have affected the USGS, U.S. Geological Services. And so they've informed us of that. However, as we've seen in this hectic period of since January 20th, things changed fairly quickly. So the tenants there, are still looking at, hey, what leasehold improvements or tenant improvements can we be making for them for the renewal, while at the same time they're aware we've been notified that to terminate. If they terminate, that's this is great property on the water, and it might open up other opportunities.
Did they happen to mention to you if they got refunded, that they would be interested in renewing a new lease?
I am certain that their every intention was to stay there, ask for leasehold improvements, understanding that they would absorb those costs and additional lease expense. So this is being informed by Washington about the intent to terminate the lease, not by the local tenants.
Correct.
So, Yes, that's why I say nothing's definite at this point until it is. But we have received that official notification. That doesn't mean that's what's going to come to pass, because, you know, they provide valuable services to, you know, to this lake, its wildlife, and those who, you know, both recreate and traffic commercially on the lake.
What do they do?
Pat, I'm gonna, you know, they have these vessels, they
They
go
have,
out.
it's called the keyhole. They go out on the water for a couple days at a time, almost a week at a time, and they basically go fishing. They check all the wildlife out there, they'll bring fish back and,
For testing.
yeah, for testing purposes to see how the environment's doing.
That they're safe?
But is there a dock that goes with that building?
Yes, sir. Yep,
You got our dock on the water?
yes.
So, you know, I know that if they wanna come back, that obviously that would be that's a good revenue source, but I think we need to have a plan B.
Oh,
Talk about that, probably something on Kitty's Lane and,
absolutely, that is going on the bulleted list that we talked about earlier,
yeah, that's what we talked about earlier.
17 Lake Street.
Yeah.
But, you know, Brendan and I talked about that, he's aware of it, you know, it could be opportunistic for us, but let's see what really happens.
At what point in time do we want to start reaching out and come to other conclusions? Well, hopefully, if we wait a little bit before we do that.
I would like to make some, the officials at NOAA, or a meeting I attended at the municipal building, had said, if you know of any properties, please let us know.
All right,
So
well,
I'm gonna just let them know that that's a potential, but, you know, they're part of the you know, federal government's, you know, adjustment to, what's being funded and what isn't, so, you know, let's just hope for the best. I put in here projects. We will have our break wall repair project going on this summer with Dean Marine contracted out through the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to keep up the repair of the break wall that really safeguards our harbor and our port for the commercial vessels that operate here, the businesses across the way, our commercial fishermen, and our pleasure crafters. The warehouse modernization grant, I'll come back to. Just, you know, we're working with Murad on that, and communications with the state too. And I'd like to just circle back around. It's kind of a complicated subject. We have finalized a bid package for the electric rail car mover, and at a week from, or 2 weeks from tomorrow, there's a call to where all the bids should be coming in due, and, you know, we'll see where they come in relative to the grant. But that was a grant that was PFRAP, right? So that was a passenger freight and rail from the New York State. We've got to see how it matches up to that. We've already done an update on the still life vessel that was abandoned here. I just want to say in open session, just how grateful we are here at the Port of Oswego Authority for the efforts of the United States Coast Guard in, you know, making sure that that didn't turn into an environmental disaster, and they put a lot of resources into making sure that that vessel doesn't represent a hazard to our waters or to our navigational system. And we have a meeting with the Coast Guard and other interested parties tomorrow at their offices across the bay here, and we'll update the board after that. I attended the American Great Lakes Port Association in Washington, D.C., what they call a legislative fly-in. The American Great Lakes Port Association is just a nice little group of all the ports that are along the American side of the Great Lakes.
Nice.
It was very interesting to, because it was Great Lakes Day, or the Great Lakes Days, there was a lot of Canadian representation, and, we had there was a function at the Canadian Embassy, and I have to say that our neighbors and friends to the north have been incredibly patient and thick-skinned about some of the approach that's been taken towards them. The lakes here know no borders. We have to work and have been working effectively with Canada as an import-export partner along this Great Lakes system, St. Lawrence Seaway system, that, again, it doesn't have, it has a red line boundary somewhere in there, but the fish don't know what it is.
Dumb fish.
So, but I will say that I've been to Washington a lot over the years, over 20 years with the New York Bankers Association, the American Bankers Association, and I've never seen the legislative side of our government so confused on what they were deeming hour-to-hour changes in policy that normally goes through a legislative process. And that's, no criticism, those are just facts.
All right. The administrative financial reports are up. Stan, are you doing that to us?
Yes, I am, very short, 60 seconds, cut me off. The cash position and total checking savings as of 2/28/2025 is down quite a bit from a year ago at this time. The balance sheet, total current assets, which do not include fixed assets, are quite a bit above last year at this time, only because we had one large grant receivable. Total assets, including fixed assets, as of 2/28/2025, are up quite a bit from last year at this time. This increase is primarily because of FEMA West capital improvement. And
So, let me say, for the New York State Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, who's administering this FEMA grant, that was a result of the flooding seasons that occurred back in, say, 2017, and did damage. We're used to working with property owners on much smaller amounts. And, these amounts are very big that we're carrying, that we've expended, that we're still waiting to be refunded for in, what's a fairly slow process, because they were used to, 4 billing periods, and we're up to 9.
Do you think it will be affected by the situation?
The state has been coming forth to all of its agencies and seeking any information and all information about what federal grants there are that are potentially outstanding. And the New York State Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, that is administering the National FEMA grant and has the funding for it, and it's not like the money hasn't been transferred to the state, but FEMA is asking for further information about every project that they're funding. So the state is looking to gauge and gather what federal funding is out there and where the progress is, while the federal government is asking of the states who have received federal money to report up about that. That's going on very actively. And there's been a number of segments of the state that have talked to us specifically about federal grants, where do they stand, what are you hearing, please report to us. And then others where it's clearly we've been asked by FEMA to report on. Please provide us this information.
when you say report up, What do you mean?
The state reporting back to FEMA on the funds that FEMA granted, that are in the hands of the state agency that is administering and allocating those funds that have yet been expended or yet to be reimbursed in our case, and asking what the status and nature of those are. There are some funding commitments at the federal level that probably, if pursued, things that are, essentially contractual obligations, that'll probably end up being settled in the court.
That was gonna be my question, if FEMA is.
I don't think on this particular grant, because we're just so through the cycle and we're so, close, and that money's already been fully allocated. But there are other things that are, I know that the port improvement and development project grants that are federal, and are being administered by the Marine Association or MARAD are active. There are things in the Clean Act that are not being currently funded, and they're not getting responses for. That is, ports that receive federal grants there are kind of being given radio silence. I think if language is out there that, how do I say this, that surrounds environmental issues, diversity, equity, inclusion issues, that they're getting more radio silence than those issues that don't.
Fun time.
And that's,
Our hands.
that's out there.
Yeah.
This isn't breaking news.
No?
Yep, yeah.
Where did we go?
Yes.
Total assets, including fixed assets, I mentioned FEMA was capital improvement. Total current liabilities and long-term liabilities year-to-date are much more than last year at this time. And that's a concern.
Yep.
Accounts payable are higher than accounts receivables. And the profit and loss statement, gross profit is up for the month of February compared to February 2024. But net ordinary income, gross profit minus expenses, is in the red for February 2025. Because of an increase in expenses, but mostly because of repairs and maintenance that were more than normal.
So every piece of machinery in this facility in the last 2 months has been serviced very well after having deferred service for quite a long time. And so those expenses will make up for themselves in efficiency. This is a slow time of the year already, just relative to the winter months, and then we had a fairly harsh winter, which affected our efficiency in moving aluminum, affected the efficiency of the silo. All of these things will improve as we move into spring, but the real test for the short term, before we can diversify our revenue sources and get some marketing out there on handling some other special projects, and particularly before and if any build occurs in the semiconductor sector, we are going to be dependent on whether or not ships are delivering aluminum from Canada. And they'll be impacted by two things, one of which is out there in actual, which is a tariff, but there's another one out there that's much more dangerous to the ports across the country, and that is a proposal to issue fees on every port of call made by a Chinese-built or Chinese retrofit ship. And
They're all Chinese.
Really?
the United States, sort of gave up the shipbuilding industry, over the last 30 years, and so Europe and America are going to China to have their ships built and repaired. It will take, if an industry leaves over 30 years and you want to bring it back, it's not going to happen in 6 months. Whether
take
that's
years.
smelting and casting aluminum or whether that's shipbuilding. So ultimately, the marketplace will demonstrate to, you know, the executive branch what policies are really effective in order to make America great again, in order to build an America, and which ones are crippling our economy. That would be my hope.
Do you think they care about that?
I believe that the president is very much what the stock market does. As a direct tie to performance.
The correction can't be too late.
The corrections that aren't.
Okay.
So it's the volatility
The
of
ambiguity.
policy, the ambiguity, and reversals of policy.
Maybe I should have said the identification.
Some of it's just being used for negotiating purposes and
Shoot it there, Stan.
would be my way.
All right, we're on the grants receivable summary. We still have quite a bit coming in. Surprisingly, we still have monies coming in for global malaria.
Yep.
I was surprised to see that. I thought that would have been done by now.
You would think.
Loan summary, we still have the same 6 loans. And 2 of the bank loans, are the rates fixed or variable?
On lines of credit, they are variable rates.
They are variable,
They are. They'll be tied to prime, and the other ones are all to be fixed rate.
Good.
But the lines of credit are almost always adjustable, either quarterly or monthly, depending on either prime or what used to be LIBOR. I don't get into the weeds. Thank you.
Schedule of assets, you can see the cost new versus the net book value. I look at that, and you
Yeah.
crunch numbers more than me.
Yeah.
When you look at the cost new, I believe it's, 33 million or something. And now,
Yeah, it's really not.
after depreciation, do you look at that and say,
So cost isn't really cost new. Cost is the original value as it was capitalized on the books,
right,
and then, depreciated over time. And so, we've had, 65% of, the total cost already amortized in depreciation, so that the net value of all of the land and buildings we're carrying here is 11.8 million. I assure you that its market value is much higher.
you think so?
Absolutely.
Is there any kind of formula you in the banking industry uses, new versus now?
No, because you normally look at depreciation is an accounting methodology, whereas if you were looking at it from a financial or an economic perspective, you'd be looking at cost to build. So what do I have? What's its value? And what would be the cost to build the same? So, that's normally where you look at and say, what's the value of my property relative to the market value? Well, your market value is really where willing buyer and willing seller meet on the price point. But replacement cost is what the insurance industry cares more about. Replacement cost is what we care more about if one of our pieces of equipment breaks down, as opposed to the amortized value. However, if you were to sell a piece of equipment, then the difference between that piece of equipment's value that you received in market value, you're writing off against the depreciated value on the books. And if it's greater than that value, then you book a profit. If it's less, you book a loss.
You get concerned about our infrastructure, we're talking about maintenance and everything else.
I will say this, that this building that we're sitting in was built in 1963, and the deferred maintenance on it began in 1964.
It's ongoing.
It's not something we're gonna solve quickly, and the only way there is through net income being converted into retained earnings, which is capital reinvested into the infrastructure.
Okay. All right.
That's kind of depressing news.
Yeah.
That's a
Sometimes
little-
you know something, but it doesn't feel as bad until somebody puts it into language. So thank you, Tom.
Year-to-date
Keep it
sales
real.
report, storage is up, package is down, mortgage is down, loading and unloading is the same. Rentals are slightly up, stevedoring is down quite a bit, so.
We need
That's
ship,
it.
we need ships in, we have a ship coming in on April 10th.
April,
or
8th,
11th.
April.
We need more ships,
9th or 10th, okay.
and we need more windmills.
Well,
Down here.
so, you know,
That may not be happening.
the special projects component of our business, I think, hopefully, if, you know, groundbreaking occurs 30 miles south of us, will be significant.
Yeah,
If
I'm
it
praying
doesn't,
for that.
Doesn't
Minimal.
plan G.
mind
All
you.
right, so, would we entertain a motion to cover both the primary
Yeah.
and the subsidiary?
Yeah. Accepting those reports.
Motion 326-2504, to approve both the primary and the subsidiary financial reports. Do we have a?
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Yeah? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Chairman's report. Fran?
Let's see.
Yeah, good job with you there for that.
Uh,
No, I mean, I just want to say thanks for all the work that you guys at the board have done with this. Everything else I pretty much said.
Sorry.
I think we're on the right track with talking with Tom and talking with Connie and where, I mean, where the board is going. What's our big picture? Where do we start? What are our top bar items and how do we achieve these goals? You know, we focus on any single point failure and we react. We look at our value of employees and react. So my take on this is we're moving in the right direction. And I thank everybody. Stan, that was a great 50 seconds report. You've been doing a really good job in acquisitions and you take nowhere. I really appreciate everything you've done. And I appreciate everything Connie has been doing really in my absence up here. She's really stepped it up. And Diane and Kitty, your time is coming.
Ha.
Some
Maybe.
projects and things planning and development. We're gonna have some, a lot of fun stuff going on.
I hope so.
And, did you go by Jamie or, I'm used to calling
Yeah.
you Jamie.
Jamie works, yeah. Still does.
Jamie work?
Yep, yep, absolutely.
Thanks for attending this. This is really more one of our lengthier meetings, but, thanks for attending and getting a feel for
Sure.
what the people in the board do. So, that's it. Thanks, Pat, for your tough work here, you know, with that silo. I hope we're gonna get some answers here soon with, meeting of the lines and figure out where we need to go with that. That's it. Thanks.
Okay,
Thanks, Fran.
Still going on.
Executive committee, there was no meeting. Audit and finance.
Yes, and we got, just to step in here, we haven't received the engagement letter, so that'll probably come next week. This again is just a kind of a cause and effect of you know, Debbie's time and attention being required elsewhere. And so we'll work with Stan to schedule an audit and finance committee. It is the audit committee itself that engages the external accountants, and so they don't really, you know, need that authorization, but it wouldn't be a bad thing just to make sure that we're saying that the chairperson is authorized to execute the engagement letter of the third-party auditors, and you know, frankly, it's in line with governance and statutory guidelines and that standard. And then we'll set up a meeting in get that engagement letter in front of them and talk about other things.
So do we need to make that motion?
You don't need to, but go ahead, it's in there and.
Go ahead, Kid. Kid, you make that motion?
Okay, yeah, I so moved, that we make the motion to authorize the chairperson of the audit committee to execute the engagement of letter to Bauer CPA advisors.
Thank you.
The governance committee
Wait a
has,
minute, Joe, hang on, we have to finish this.
I'll second it.
Diane, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. John?
So-
Oh, cool. Planning and development?
Nothing so far. We've done nothing really yet, have we, Fred?
We're waiting for more board members consistently so we
Yeah.
can set our,
There we go.
Yeah, Kitty, things are warming up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me know, give me at least a little head start, okay?
Just so you know, friend, we woke up with snow-covered cars this morning.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
a couple inches actually.
Really?
Yes, really.
Okay, on to old business? None?
that's part of it.
Okay. New business?
Yeah, so this, under tab G, is a pretty simple agreement with the New York Power Authority. They have a system that they call, the other day, Smart Energy and Energy Manager. And all we're authorizing them to do, the New York Power Authority, a fellow authority, is we provide them information on our utility bill access so that they can, like other services, like, if any of you have ever signed up for, kind of a financial management services where they scrape all your bank accounts, investment accounts, and show it to you in one place. This is just gonna go and scrape off all of our utility bill information, and then they have analytics tools that they want to apply to it, and then they open up that platform for us. So it benefits the New York Power Authority to be able to assess how much, water and utilities are being used by the authorities of the state of New York, and gain more knowledge, and they share that knowledge with us in the form of statistical and graphical information. So this is just a plus. This was supposed to have been done back in September, and it was sent out to, supposedly sent out to council, but it really just wasn't done. I read it, it doesn't need outside review, it's pretty simple.
Cost savings.
I think that, there could be, I certainly, the overall objective of the New York Power Authority would be, to enhance efficiencies and, eliminate inefficiencies within, the supply of power to all of the agencies that would be under this energy manager system. That's their objective, and hopefully they'll achieve it.
Okay.
But they're not gonna use it as a slap on the wrist, hey, your energy hogs over there, and they don't.
They tell me that all the time.
Yeah.
$150
Yeah.
loan. Review of authorities budget office, audit of required website content.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna, it's in there for your review. They wanted a response by March 10th. I emailed them. Fran was on all of these emails as the chair, so he was on the initial one. This is just a review of our website to see that it contained all of the items that the state requires to be out there for full public disclosure and transparency. They noticed some items that weren't out there. I asked them to wait for the end of this month so that we could have our board meeting and adopt that conflict of interest policy. There are some things out here that, a little bit more challenging. As you see, we are with this small size of our board, our planning committee, our committees don't meet all that often, and, these requirements, extend to very large authorities like the Port of New York, New Jersey,
Yeah.
where, you have a lot of committees, and, probably a very large board, and the executive committee does most of the work, and they want that stuff out in the public realm. Well, for us, everything that we do in committee comes to the board and this is the public realm that we operate in to do. So I want to just discuss that with the authority's budget office, that, I went through this in banking too, and what, we ultimately talked to, the FDIC and the Office of Control of Currency about it, is the process of tailored regulation. Let's not, do a one-size-fits-all for all organizations. But these are laws and the statutory, and it's about open government and transparency.
And our committees do not have a majority of the board on them, so they're not, they don't have to be open.
Everything that we do in committees is really just, probably not forum group, it's just sub-work that's come back to and reported to the board, and all action is taken by the board. So the full disclosure takes place in the board meeting. And so that's the conversation that I want to have before we,
Right.
start just
And
clogging up our.
videoing the committee meetings is really not,
Yeah,
so you'll let us know if there's.
Yeah. I'll you'll be copied on the response.
So Tom, on the motion we're supposed to make about the New York Energy Manager,
Yeah.
is that being tabled?
No, that was done. That was
Yeah,
done.
we did, yes.
We did. You authorized me to
I didn't
execute
say
that.
yes. Yeah, I don't know, okay,
I
sorry.
can't even, you're right, I know we talked about it, and I think there was a motion, and you'll have to,
Yeah, there was.
did you get a motion to on that?
For-
Yes.
Energy manager with
Somebody
NIPA?
first and seconded?
No.
I must have
so.
did
I
that.
think you seconded it, John first.
Okay, we didn't do that, we got distracted. You were right.
No, there
Oh, we
wasn't,
did.
Okay,
I
so,
don't think there was a
there wasn't a motion.
No,
on
we
that.
did,
No,
that's what
we
I'm
did
saying,
not
there's no
do that.
motion, we need to
Yep,
make a motion.
Yep,
You
you,
already said.
Oh, okay,
You
make the
already said it.
motion.
you were the one at the table who was absolutely correct.
Make the
are you
motion.
making the motion?
Okay, yes, I am.
Motion
Damn it.
to authorize the interim executive director to execute the utility bill integration services agreement with New York Energy Manager. Ed, do we have a second?
Second.
John, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, the New York Power Authority would be very happy. They've
Somebody's
been
doing it.
waiting for this for a while, and if I let this go without a motion being made, I don't know.
Anything for the good of the order?
Nope.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
7:09.